Joining me now on the show is Professor in Politics and International Relations, Matthew Goodwin, and independent statistician and political commentator, Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, I'm going to start with you because it seems like a very obvious move that the Prime Minister has made, saying he's going to cut all COVID restrictions a few weeks early. The legislation was due for renewal in March, likely to be a policy that's very popular with people who are frankly fed up with the pandemic. But is it the right move?
Yeah, well, Alex, I think there comes a point where we do need to kind of learn to live with the virus, and doing it as you go in towards the spring and then obviously the summer months is much better to do it than when you're in the winter months. Whether or not we would have been in this position to have done this had the Omicron variant not come along, I'm not so sure. But if you do look at the facts and figures, the number of patients in intensive care has been significantly falling, and it's, the vast majority of patients in hospital now are in with Omicron, but then are actually being treated because of Omicron. And we kind of, if you're looking at the deaths figures, the SAGE were predicting that potentially up to 3,000 deaths we would peak in January, and we haven't gone above 200. So I think an important thing to kind of look at where we are now, Alex, is that if you take the ONS figures on total deaths, so let's not just focus on COVID, let's look at total deaths in the country at the moment, and they're actually similar to what we would see in a normal winter. They're lower than some of the years just before the pandemic as well. So I think some people will be concerned that if self-isolation's scrapped, will more people catch it, will more vulnerable people catch it? So we'll be interested to see what his plan is, because it might be that there's no requirement to self-isolate, but there might be some advisories to self-isolate if you're living with or close to some kind of vulnerable people.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Do you think this is the sort of policy that, entities like Transport for London, shops, supermarkets, businesses might go their own way on this and say, look, if we still want the testing regimen to continue. If you test positive for COVID, don't come into work. Or do you think that, we're ready as a nation now to just literally live with COVID, whether we have it or not, whether we spread it or not, just get on with life?
Well, I don't think, Alex, you're going to see Scotland and Wales, for example, follow Boris, partly probably to do with political reasons. They obviously do things differently. So I live in Wales. I don't see Mark Drakeford following Boris. What will be interesting if the other devolved nations don't do that, is to look at the data there and actually see if we see any significant differences. Because remember, the devolved nations put in further restrictions over the Christmas period. Didn't have any real different outcome in terms of England. Things didn't get too bad overall in England there. So you might be hitting there, though, that you're going to get, say, Transport for London, some local authorities, and it starts becoming a bit of a mess if you get local people doing local things and schools can do some things, other things, because people don't know where they're coming or going then, do they?